Hey, what's up, Mythgardians? Cool Cat here with another Mythgard deck, and today I present to you the new OP. The reason I call it that is because orange and purple is generally going to be a slower color combination. They have some slower mid-range style decks, but they're mostly known for their peach control deck, where they look to control the board, grind out the slower matchups with a bunch of small bodies, and get some really big heals off of the peach of life. But this deck that I'm bringing to you today is a very, very aggressive list focused on using their Zealots synergies and their smaller drops to control the board early and close out the game by maybe turn 5 or 6. And if it does end up going a little long, we have some great card draw engines to help grind out those slower matchups. So let's go ahead and hop into the deck list. We'll go ahead and go over some replays, and then we'll have, as always, a short conclusion at the end. Right, and before we hop into the list, let's go ahead and give credit where credit is due. This list was engineered by Toonstar. If you're not familiar with who Toonstar is, he was one of the, well, actually, he was the first champion level player. He was the first player to hit champion at the beginning of the open beta. And this list is pretty much his brainchild right now. And for the path and the power, we're going to go ahead and go over the path. We have Disc of Circadia. This is not a very widely used path outside of reanimator decks. It's on the more difficult side to use correctly. Orange and purple is really the strongest color combination to utilize this path, because it gives you plenty of items and plenty of tokens to discard when you try to switch it over to the day side, because when you use your power, it'll flip from one side to the other. On one side you have night. At the beginning of night, you divination 2 and draw a card, and then all of the minions that didn't attack at the end of your turn heal for 1. And then when you flip it over to the day side by using your power, you discard a card, and all minions have Slayer 1. Which basically means you'll have to discard a card. You take a card from your hand, put it into your boneyard. Orange and purple gives you items. It gives you tokens to discard, so you're not actually discarding real cards. So it's essentially going to be free Slayer 1 for all minions. And then, of course, on the Pursuit, your first power costs 0 to activate, which is very helpful. Again, with Smite, that little extra damage can usually help close out the game. And then our power, as I just said, is going to be Smite. 2 mana, deal 2 damage to your opponent if they have more life than you. If they are lower life than you, you only deal 1 damage. The main reason for Smite is because it is an aggressive power and you don't require any sort of board state to activate it, so you can flip your disc whenever you need to. So if you don't have any cards in your hand and you want to flip it to the night side to draw a card, you don't need to have anything on the board to do that. Say, like, if you had Impel or Infuse, you would need minions on the board to activate that power. And then moving into the deck list, you have your very strong, aggressive core and 3 of the convictions. This is really great to close out games, get a little bit of extra damage, help your small tokens trade up a little bit. You have 4 eager recruits, best 1 drop in the game. A lot of value, especially with the disc, and it's just really great to control the board early. And then you have a recently buffed card. You have your Storied Martyr. Its demise, give all of your rebel minions +1/+1. So with that, you'll give your Xerxian Recruiter +1/+1, which is a very easy thing to curve into. You play your Storied Martyr on 1, you play the Xerxian Recruiter on 2, kill off the Martyr, and then you just buff your guy up, and that can really close out games really quickly at turn 2, 3, 4. And then you can also buff up your Xerxian Sympathizer, which is also really great to close out games pretty quickly once you get it Frenzy. And you can also give a +1/+1 when you play other Zealots or other Rebels, I apologize, to really help to do a lot of burst damage really quickly. And then you have your Ghoul. It's just a really strong 2-drop. It controls the board very well. It's very good to counter reanimator decks, which are very strong against aggressive decks. And then you have your Spear of Destiny. It makes all of your minions Zealots, and all Zealots have focused 1, which means it deals 1 more damage when fighting the direct opposite lane. So not only are all of your minions Zealots, which will help with your Xerxian Sympathizer, it also gives them all focused 1, which will help you do more damage if you're attacking the lane straight across, which you generally will be. And then you have your Xerxian Recruiter. It's great card draw. We're running 30 minions in the deck, so it's not going to whiff very often. And then it'll also make that card you draw a Rebel, which will also buff it from the Storied Martyr and help buff up your Xerxian Sympathizer as well. And then we're running 3 of the Serendipity of Freets. It's a very aggressively statted minion. A 3-mana 4/4 is very strong. And then it'll let you Divination 3, which will help smooth out your draws a little bit. And then we already went over this card a little bit. Xerxian Sympathizer, 3-mana 3/3. When you make another Rebel, it gets +1/+1 until the end of your turn. When you make another Zealot, it'll get Frenzy, which means it can attack twice per turn. And then with the Spear of Destiny, everything's a Zealot, so everything will give it Frenzy. And you also just run a lot of Zealots in general with the Eager Recruits, with the Xerxian Sympathizer itself. And then, let's see, we have our Parry at the Gates. This will help you to grind out those slower matchups. And then you have your Scion of Pride. This is really strong. It has a slightly different use in this deck than it does in a lot of other decks. Usually you're going to use that Pride of Place spell to turn one of your smaller drops into a 4/4 as opposed to getting rid of an enemy threat. And also Overrun's just a really great stat to have in aggressive decks. You have 2 of the Seal of Exiles. 2 Seal of Exiles, just really good to get rid of an enemy threat to close out the game. 2 Temptations, it's really good to steal an enemy threat to close out the game. So that's your orange suite there. Your standard aggressive Zealot fare. And then moving into the purple, you have 4 of the Racer in Shadow. It's really strong early game removal, really good board control tool, and it'll also help you steal out some games with some rush to the enemy's face. You have 2 of the Steam Buns. This is good to get that square pike into your hand to discard with your Disc of Circadia. And it's also some good card draw in the slower matchups, and it'll also help fill out your Boneyard for Peach of Life. Surprisingly, in this aggressive deck, it's not that hard to get those 7 or more minions in your Boneyard by turn 5 or 6. So it's not very often that the Peach will whiff. It'll also help you close out a lot of face races, a lot of aggro v aggro matchups. And then, of course, you have the Hotel Barkeep. The powerful Ramen. It will help you cast Smite more, deal more damage, flip your disc when you need to. And it's just an overall strong defensively statted body that can help to close out some games by just surviving trades with Convictions, with the Spear of Destiny, just to get that little extra face damage in. So that's pretty much the list there. So let's go ahead and hop into some replays and we'll see how it plays out. Alright, so for this match we are up against Pawello Wee. They're playing a really fun blue-orange deserts deck. So looking at our opening hand, we have a really great aggressive start. Let's see, we have Eager Recruits. We do have now our Storied Martyr Xerxian Recruiter synergy here. So we'll go ahead and play out our Storied Martyr. Hopefully curve that into a Xerxian Recruiter and a trade up. But they don't have anything to block, so we're not even going to worry about playing that Xerxian Recruiter quite yet. So we'll go ahead and drop down some Eager Recruits, flood the board, fill our hand with some tokens to discard once we want to flip our disc over to the day side so that we can get that Slayer on our smaller drops to help them trade up into pretty much anything that they would be able to play on turn 3. So they'll burn a blue, and then they're going to go ahead and play that Dune Courser, looking to block both of these minions. But thankfully, I have the Conviction in hand, so I'm going to go ahead and burn that card. I'm going to drop my Xerxian Recruiter, play the Conviction onto the Storied Martyr to get a clean trade, buff my Xerxian Recruiter, and just go ahead and send the rest of them face. So they're going to go ahead and burn, and they're going to try to block as much as they can with this Parry at the Gates, digging for some answers here to this very strong board that we've set up. So we're going to use our power, get that extra damage in, draw that extra card. We don't need the Slayer to keep pushing this damage because we're just going to go ahead and race her down the parry, play the Storied Martyr over to the left, giving them another threat to worry about so that they can't block off too much with just a single minion or even 2 minions. So they're going to play the Parser Regulars over to the left, and then they're going to drop a Sandscape, which I do have a little over lethal over on the right hand side. So I'll just go ahead and swing that face, end the game nice and easy on turn 5. So that shows you just how aggressive this deck can be right out of the gates. That storied Martyr and Desertian Recruiter curve is amazingly strong. Not too many decks will have an answer for that early on. All right, in this matchup, we are going up against Sunny Bearby. They are playing a mono yellow snake deck, which is very grindy, so this deck shouldn't have any issues with that. So they'll go ahead and drop down the Axolotl right in the middle lane. I'm going to go ahead and contest that with my Eager Recruit. Just drop that right down right in front to contest and make sure that they're not able to buff that up out of our reach. So they'll just go ahead and straight trade it off and drop the Striking Viper. This card was kind of scary to deal with. We have many minions above 2 health, believe it or not. But with this Hotel Barkeep, I'm not too concerned with it. That gives us something really easy to trade with. So we're going to pop our power, flip our disc. We don't really have anything to play this turn, so we're not going to do anything. They're going to play the Serpent's Den over to the right. We have the Conviction, which is really, really great against the Serpent's Den. We'll burn the Peach of Life, giving us that purple gem. Play the Barkeep over here to block the Striking Viper. Go ahead and flip our disc to the night side, draw a card, and make sure that our Hotel Barkeep doesn't take too much damage from this Striking Viper in a trade. So they'll drop another Serpent's Den right in the middle. They're really trying to clog up the board right now with their snakes. But we're just going to go ahead and ignore those 2 lanes. We're going to drop our Xerxian Sympathizer over to the left, Conviction our Barkeep to trade up on the Viper, and do a little bit of face damage over here. So this Conviction Barkeep's going to be very strong against these Serpent Dens that they're spamming out. So that's going to be 5 damage with Overrun going straight at their face. We're going to drop the parry, draw a couple of cards. We're really looking for an activator, so we pull our Eager Recruit, which is going to activate our Frenzy on our Sympathizer. So we're going to clear that 1/1, which does a little bit of extra damage since it has since it's during the winter and it has that Fragile. So that's great news for us. They kill off our Barkeep with their snake, which isn't that big of a deal because we do have our Racer, which is going to just clear that snake right off. We have our Zealot activator granting our Sympathizer Frenzy. So with the Racer clearing off the blocker, frenzying for twice to their face, and our Smite to ping it straight down, we have exact lethal. And that was all by turn 6. So that shows you exactly how quick this deck can close out games with the Zealot synergies and the Convictions. It's just a very strong start, very good deck, very consistent to get these kinds of strong starts. So that is the deck. It's a super strong, super fast orange and purple aggro deck. You're really able to close out games sometimes as quickly as turn 4, but you can also grind out the games with your parry at the gates, with your Xerxian Recruiters to get that card draw, and the Steam Buns and the Peach of Life as well. So you have a lot of options, a lot of different lines of play. The disc offers a lot of different choices as well. It's very difficult to play exactly optimally with the disc. Not too many people are able to do that, myself included. I'm sure I made quite a few misplays learning this deck, but give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Make sure you like the video if you like the deck and the tech. Make sure you comment any suggestions, how you do with the deck. If you're missing anything, let me know. I might be able to help you out with some replacements, and subscribe for more Mythgard content. And always remember, GG for Matt.